You know their catchphrases, you remember their characters, you've probably grown up with their shows on in the background, a comforting laugh track to your own life. But have you ever stopped to wonder what happened to these TV legends? In a world of fleeting fame, some stars don't just fade away, they become timeless. These are the 14 oldest sitcom actors who are over 80 to 100 years old. 1. Dick Van Dyke. What if you could trip, dance, and charm your way through nearly a century and still be the life of the party as you approach your 100th birthday? It sounds like a Hollywood fantasy, but for one man, it's just another day. We're talking about the one, the only, the eternally joyful Dick Van Dyke. As he looks forward to his 100th birthday in December 2025, it's hard to overstate his impact. Back in 1961, television was filled with perfect, untouchable families. Then came The Dick Van Dyke Show, and everything changed. As the charmingly flustered TV writer Rob Petrie, Van Dyke wasn't just a dad. He was a cool, witty, and sometimes spectacularly clumsy guy you felt you actually knew. The show's opening is legendary for a reason. Every week, viewers would hold their breath, asking the same question. Will he trip over the ottoman this time, or will he skillfully avoid it? That simple gag was a masterstroke, a weekly dose of suspense that made him instantly relatable. He was a master of physical comedy, turning a simple fall into a work of art. He had conquered television, becoming America's favorite funnyman, and winning armfuls of Emmys. But his journey was far from over. Hollywood had bigger plans, and a certain magical nanny was about to sweep in and make him a global superstar. You think you know Mary Poppins? Wait until you hear the real story behind his iconic role as Bert. He danced with animated penguins, sang on the rooftops of London, and, despite his famously questionable Cockney accent, captured the hearts of the entire world. His performance is pure cinematic joy, a burst of energy that leaps off the screen. But here's the real cliffhanger. His incredible energy never faded when the camera stopped rolling. In fact, what's truly mind-blowing is that the man seems to be aging in reverse. Dick Van Dyke became a legend by being the charming, lovable star in front of the camera, a master of performance. But our next icon, another 99-year-old genius, made his mark in a totally different way as the mastermind behind the scenes. A writer who created entire comedy universes with his wild and fearless humor. 2. Mel Brooks. Imagine a mind so funny, so wild, so completely fearless that it shaped what we laugh at for over 70 years. Now, imagine that mind belongs to a man who is 99 years old and still as sharp as ever. That man is the legendary Mel Brooks. When you hear his name, your brain probably jumps to his classic movies Blazing Saddles, The Producers, Young Frankenstein. He's a certified genius, one of the very few people on Earth to snag an EGOT, an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. He's conquered every corner of entertainment. But before he became the king of comedy films, he was a secret weapon in the world of television. It all started in the 1950s, in what might be the most legendary writer's room in history. As a writer for Sid Caesar's Your Show of Shows, Brooks worked alongside future giants like Carl Reiner and Neil Simon. They were a band of comedy pirates, and they practically invented the formula for TV sketch comedy that shows like Saturday Night Live still use today. He could have stopped there and still been a legend. But Mel Brooks was just getting warmed up. His next target? The sitcom. And the result was a show so clever and so silly that it became an instant classic. Along with co-creator Buck Henry, he unleashed Get Smart upon the world. The show was a brilliant parody of the suave, serious spy thrillers of the day. Their hero, Maxwell Smart, was a bumbling, clueless secret agent who somehow managed to save the world every week, usually by accident. Catchphrases like "missed it by that much" and "sorry about that, chief" became playground currency. Brooks had bottled his chaotic genius into a 30-minute sitcom. While he preferred to pull the strings from behind the curtain, he couldn't resist stepping in front of the camera now and then. His guest role as Uncle Phil on Mad About You was so funny it won him an Emmy. Mel Brooks built a comedy empire on glorious, zany chaos. But what if your legacy was built on the exact opposite? Our next actor is a master of quiet dignity and stern intelligence. A man who became a beloved mentor to an entire generation, and whose other most famous role as the voice of a talking car will absolutely shock you. 3. William Daniels. If you grew up in the 90s, there was one teacher who mattered more than any other. He never gave you homework, but he gave you life lessons you'd never forget. He was your neighbor, your principal, and your guide through the chaos of growing up. He was Mr. Feeney, and the man who brought him to life, William Daniels, is a living legend who turned 98 years old in March 2025. For 7 seasons on Boy Meets World, Daniels was the unshakable moral center of the show. As George Feeney, he watched over Corey Matthews and his friends with a blend of stern wisdom and deep affection. From his perch in the garden, he doled out advice that was so profound it resonated with millions of kids and adults alike. He wasn't just a character, he was a mentor to an entire generation. His final line in the series finale, a quiet, heartfelt, "I love you all." Class dismissed us enough to make a grown man cry. It was the perfect end to one of television's most beloved character arcs. But here's the twist you never saw coming. Mr. Feeney was just one of his iconic roles. Long before he ever picked up a piece of chalk, Daniels was a titan of the stage, starring as John Adams in the hit Broadway musical 1776. He was a respected film actor, but his other most famous role is so different from Mr. Feeney. It's almost unbelievable. Are you ready for this? He was the voice of KITT, the talking, crime-fighting, high-tech Pontiac Trans Am from the 80s action classic Knight Rider. That's right, the same calm, authoritative voice that guided Corey Matthews through the awkward phases of growing up was also David Hasselhoff's snarky, four-wheeled sidekick. One man, 2 completely different cultural touchstones. And before all that, he won 2 Emmys for playing the arrogant Dr. Mark Craig on the gritty medical drama St. Elsewhere. William Daniels gave us the ideal mentor, the calm and reassuring teacher everyone wished they had. But not all iconic TV family members are so wise and gentle. Our next legend, an Oscar winner no less, made her sitcom mark playing a mother who was the complete oppositia master of the guilt trip and the backhanded compliment who could create a storm just by walking into a room. 4. Estelle Parsons. Some TV moms offer warm hugs and fresh-baked cookies. And then there's Beverly Harris. With a passive-aggressive comment and a withering stare, she could stop you in your tracks. The actress behind this unforgettable character is the powerhouse Estelle Parsons, who will turn 98 years old in November 2025. And she is anything but your typical sitcom star. Parsons is acting royalty. She has an Academy Award for her electrifying performance in the classic film Bonnie and Clyde. She's a legend on the Broadway stage. So, when she signed on to play the mother of Roseanne and Jackie on the groundbreaking sitcom Roseanne, it was a huge deal. For 10 years, she created a character who was both hilariously awful and tragically real. Beverly was the queen of the backhanded compliment, a master of the guilt trip. She could suck all the oxygen out of a room with a single, perfectly timed sigh. You laughed at her, you cringed at her, and you felt for her all at the same time. It was a brave, brilliant performance. But here's the part that will truly blow your mind. The role of Beverly was so iconic, so ingrained in the show's DNA, that when Roseanne was rebooted as the Connors decades later, there was only one person who could play her. Estelle Parsons came back, stepping back into Beverly's shoes well into her 90s, not missing a single beat. Her stamina is the stuff of legend. To have the passion and energy to bring that character back to life after so many years is a feat few actors could ever hope to achieve. She wasn't done yet, proving her talent was as sharp as ever. Before Roseanne, she even had a recurring part on the legendary All in the Family. Estelle Parsons is a powerhouse, an unforgettable star who commands any scene she's in with just one or two iconic roles. But some legends aren't built on being the main event. Our next actor is the ultimate that guy. A face you've seen 100 times in 100 different places. The king of playing the perpetually worried dad. 5. You definitely know his face. You've seen him in a dozen movies and TV shows. You've laughed at his worried expressions and his flustered reactions. He is the ultimate that guy. The kind of actor who makes everything better just by showing up. His name is Paul Dooley, and at 97 years old, he is one of the most prolific and beloved character actors of all time. His career has been a marathon of memorable moments. His sweet spot has always been playing the perpetually stressed-out dad, a role he perfected in the Oscar-winning 1979 film Breaking Away. As the father of a wannabe Italian cyclist in the middle of Indiana, he was the perfect mix of exasperated and loving. That role set the stage for a lifetime of playing America's favorite worried father. But his work in sitcoms is where his true versatility shines through. You name a classic sitcom, and chances are Paul Dooley was on it. The Golden Girls? Check. Seinfeld? Yep. Curb Your Enthusiasm? Of course. He was the go-to guy for a dose of relatable, hilarious anxiety. Some of his roles, however, became legendary in their own right. He had a recurring part as the therapist father on the quirky HBO sitcom Dream On, and he was absolutely unforgettable as the eccentric dad of Helen Hunt's character on the massive 90s hit Mad About You. But what is the secret to his incredible longevity? How has one man managed to stay so relevant for so long, popping up in everything from 80s classics to modern hits like Modern Family? The answer lies in his special brand of magic. He brings a grounded, real-world humanity to every character. He doesn't feel like an actor playing a part. He feels like someone you know. Paul Dooley perfected the art of playing the flustered, worried father, a staple of family sitcoms. But if he was the king of paternal anxiety, our next star is the absolute queen of maternal warmth. For an entire generation, she wasn't just a TV mom, she was the TV mom. The comforting heart of one of the happiest shows ever made. 6. Marion Ross. For millions of people around the world, she's not an actress. She's simply Mrs. C. She is the quintessential American mom, a warm and comforting presence who felt like part of the family. Marion Ross, who will celebrate her 97th birthday in October 2025, is and always will be Marion Cunningham from the iconic sitcom Happy Days. For 11 seasons, from the rock and roll 50s to the groovy 60s, she was the heart and soul of the Cunningham household. While the Fonz was the epitome of cool and Richie was the boy next door, Mrs. C was the glue that held their entire world together. With a gentle smile and a patient ear, she could solve any problem. From a broken heart to a broken-down motorcycle, she navigated the chaos of her family with an unflappable grace, creating one of the most believable and beloved mothers in television history. Her chemistry with Tom Bosley, who played her husband Howard, was so perfect that you believed they were truly married. The role made her a superstar and earned her 2 Emmy nominations. But her story didn't end when Happy Days went off the air. In fact, she was just getting started on a shocking new chapter. After a decade of being America's mom, many actors would have been typecast forever. But not Marion Ross. She launched an incredible second act, taking on roles that showed off her amazing range. She earned 2 more Emmy nominations for her role in the critically acclaimed drama Brooklyn Bridge. And then, she did something completely unexpected. She became a voice actress. lending her talents to one of the most popular cartoons of all time. Can you guess which one? She was the voice of SpongeBob SquarePants' grandmother. Marion Ross gave us the perfect, warm, engaged mother who was always in the middle of the action. Our next legend, however, built an entire career on being the exact opposite, a master of the quiet, stammering reaction, the calm center of a storm of comedic chaos. 7. Bob Newhart. There has never been anyone quite like him. He's a comedian who can get bigger laughs with a stutter and a confused stare than most can with a punchline. He is Bob Newhart, and at 95 years old, he's still a master of his craft. His entire career has been built on a simple but brilliant premise. He plays the one sane person in a world gone completely mad. His comedy doesn't scream, it whispers. It's all in his masterful, stammering reactions to the absurdity unfolding around him. Before he was a TV god, he was a stand-up sensation with a twist. His 1960 album, The Button-Down Mind of Bob Newhart, was a recording of his one-sided telephone conversations. It was just him talking into a phone, and it was so funny that it went to 1001 on the Billboard charts, beating out Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra. A comedy album did that. It was clear he was destined for greatness. But could he translate that unique style to a weekly sitcom? The answer was a resounding yes. Not once, but twice. First came The Bob Newhart Show, where he played Dr. Bob Hartley, a mild-mannered psychologist in Chicago surrounded by bizarre patients and wacky neighbors. It was a smash hit. Then, in the 80s, he did it again with Newhart, playing an author who runs a Vermont inn populated by even stranger characters, including the iconic trio. I'm Larry, this is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl. The show was a hit for 8 seasons, but it was the finale that would go down in history. The show ended with what is widely considered the single greatest, most mind-blowing twist in television history. It was a cliffhanger so perfect, so unexpected, that people are still talking about it today. Bob Newhart perfected subtle, understated comedy. But our next star built his most famous character on being the complete opposite. A whirlwind of manic, over-the-top energy. A man whose passion for his ghoulish family was as explosive as it was charming. 8. John Astin. With a mischievous sparkle in his eye and a burst of manic glee, he created a TV dad unlike any other. He was suave, romantic, passionate, and completely ghoulish. At 95 years old, John Astin will forever be celebrated as the one and only Gomez Addams from the Addams Family. From 1964 to 1966, Astin brought the patriarch of the creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky Addams clan to life. Gomez was a paradox. He was an old-world aristocrat who loved fencing and gleefully smashing his model trains, but he was also a gleeful child who would do yoga headstands at the drop of a hat. Most of all, he was passionately, madly in love with his wife Morticia. The way he would shower her with French phrases and kiss his way up her arm was both weird and wonderfully romantic. He was an eccentric millionaire who found joy in the macabre, yet he was also one of the most devoted and loving husbands on television. For Astin, it was just the beginning of a new, wild chapter. He famously took over the role of the Riddler from Frank Gorshin in the 60s Batman series, trading his fencing foil for a question mark cane. He popped up everywhere, from quirky millionaires on Night Court to, get this, a professor of acting and directing at the prestigious Johns Hopkins University. He spent years teaching his craft to a new generation, sharing the secrets of his comedic genius. No matter what else he did, the ghost of Gomez always followed him. He was the ultimate chaotic, rule-breaking patriarch. Our next actor, however, became a legend playing the exact opposite, calm, cool, rule-enforcing police captain. A man whose job was to bring order to the chaos of New York City. 9. Hal Linden. For 8 long seasons, He was the calm in the eye of the storm. He was the captain of a squad room filled with chaos, comedy, and some of the strangest criminals ever seen on television. Hal Linden, who turned 94 years old in March 2025, is an icon for his Emmy-winning role as the star of the classic sitcom Barney Miller. From 1975 to 1982, Captain Barney Miller was the ultimate straight man. The show was revolutionary for its time, taking place almost entirely in the grimy, run-down squad room of New York's 12th precinct. The comedy didn't come from silly plots. It came from the real-world absurdity of the people who passed through its doors, and from the quirky detectives on Barney's team. Through it all, Barney was the anchor. He was the sane, patient, and perpetually tired man trying to hold it all together. What made Linden's performance a work of genius was how little he did. He wasn't the one telling the jokes. He was the one reacting with a weary sigh, a raised eyebrow, or a quiet, knowing look that spoke volumes. He was the boss everyone wished they had, fair, smart, and impossible to rattle, even when a man in a business suit claimed to be a werewolf. But here's the secret about Hal Linden that most people don't know. Before he was a TV cop, he was a massive star in a completely different world. He was an accomplished clarinet player and a Tony Award-winning Broadway leading man. Hal Linden's portrayal of Barney Miller was a masterclass in being the calm boss managing a chaotic workplace. But what about the other side of that coin? Our next legend became iconic, playing a wisecracking employee who spent all her time creating glorious chaos for her boss. 10. Marla Gibbs, with one perfectly timed eye roll, she could bring the house down. With one sharp-tongued comeback, she could put her pompous boss in his place. She was the maid who was really the master. She is Marla Gibbs, and at 94 years old, she is a certified sitcom goddess for her iconic role as Florence Johnston on The Jeffersons. For 11 seasons, from 1975 to 1985, Florence was the wisecracking, lazy maid locked in an epic weekly battle of wits with George Jefferson. Their hilarious insults were the comedic heartbeat of the show. Florence was never just the help. She was George's ultimate rival, the one person who was completely unafraid to knock him off his high horse. She was the voice of the audience, saying all the things they were thinking. But here's the most amazing part of her story, the part that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. When Marla Gibbs was first cast on The Jeffersons, one of the biggest shows on television, she refused to quit her day job. What was that job? She was a reservations agent for United Airlines. For 2 full years, she would work at the airline all day, then rush to the TV studio to tape the show at night. She was living a secret double life. She finally quit the airline when she realized the show was a massive hit that wasn't going anywhere. But she didn't stop there. After The Jeffersons ended, she went on to star in her own hit sitcom, 227, which ran for 5 successful seasons. She wasn't just a scene stealer anymore. She was the star. Marla Gibbs has never stopped working, taking roles in shows like Grey's Anatomy and Young Sheldon. Marla Gibbs's verbal jabs as Florence were so sharp, they felt like magic. But our next star didn't need witty comebacks to create comedy. She used actual magic, playing a literal genie whose attempts to please her master always ended in hilarious disaster. 11. Barbara Eden. With a blink of her eyes and a magical nod of her head, she could grant any wish. She was the bubbly, beautiful, and slightly mischievous genie who became one of the biggest stars of the 60s. Barbara Eden, who will turn 94 years old in August 2025, enchanted the entire world as the star of the fantasy sitcom classic I Dream of Jeannie. The show's premise was pure 60s magic. An astronaut, Captain Tony Nelson, crash lands on a deserted island and finds an ornate bottle. When he opens it, he unleashes a 2,000-year-old genie who instantly falls in love with him and devotes her life to serving her new master. Eden's performance was the heart and soul of the show. She played Jeannie with a perfect cocktail of wide-eyed innocence and playful mischief. Her comedic timing was flawless, especially in the physical comedy that came from Jeannie trying to use her ancient powers in the modern world, which usually led to hilarious disasters. She wanted to help her master, but her magic always seemed to get him into trouble, much to his eternal frustration. The chemistry between Eden and her co-star, Larry Hagman, was electric. Their dynamic's constant stress and her desperate eagerness to please was the engine that drove the comedy. But the show almost didn't happen the way we know it. Barbara Eden became a television icon playing a single magical character. Our next star is another Latina trailblazer from that same era, but her career is defined by its incredible range, conquering not just TV but film, music, and Broadway to become a member of the most exclusive club in Hollywood. 12. Rita Moreno. She is not just a star, she is a supernova, a trailblazer, a force of nature who has conquered every single corner of the entertainment world. At 93 years old, Rita Moreno is a living legend and one of the few proud members of the ultra-exclusive EGOT Club. She has an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony. She has done it all. Many people know her for her fiery Oscar-winning performance as Anita in the classic 1961 film West Side Story. It was a role that made her a star and a role model for Hispanic performers everywhere. But her contributions to television, especially the sitcom world, are just as monumental. For 6 years, she was a key player on the beloved PBS children's show The Electric Company. Alongside future stars like Morgan Freeman, she used her incredible comedic and musical talents to teach kids how to read. Her famous, booming catchphrase is still shouted with joy by millions who grew up with the show. But if you think her best work is behind her, you are about to be proven wrong. In 2017, she returned to the sitcom world with a vengeance. She took on the role of Lydia Riera, the feisty, dramatic, and utterly fabulous Cuban grandmother on the critically acclaimed reboot of One Day at a Time. With her theatrical entrances and her passionate speeches about life and family, she didn't just steal scenes, she stole the entire show. The role introduced her to a whole new generation of fans and proved that her star power and comedic timing are as sharp as ever. Rita Moreno is an EGOT-winning titan who has shined in dozens of projects. Our next legend is another undisputed titan of television, a woman who didn't just star in a show, she had her name in the title, and became the queen of a whole genre of comedy. 13. Carol Burnett. She is not just a comedian. She is the undisputed queen of television comedy. Carol Burnett, who turned 92 years old in April 2025, is a true pioneer, a comedic genius whose influence is still felt in every sketch show on the air today. For 11 glorious years, The Carol Burnett Show was appointment television. It wasn't a typical sitcom, it was a weekly variety show, a comedy free-for-all that became a cultural phenomenon. The show was a masterclass in comedy, and its sketches are the stuff of legend. Who could ever forget the Gone with the Wind parody, where she swept down the stairs as Starlet O'Hara, wearing a dress made from the curtains with the curtain rod still attached? It's one of the funniest moments in TV history. Or the hilarious sketches with her dream team of co-stars, Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, and the prankster king Tim Conway. The chemistry of that cast was pure magic. But the show was also famous for something else: the unscripted moments. Carol was a generous performer, but she was famously unable to keep a straight face when her co-stars, especially Tim Conway, would go off script and try to make her laugh. Watching her struggle to hold it together became part of the fun. She could do it all. One minute she was playing a bumbling secretary, the next a clueless housewife, and the next the perpetually frustrated Mrs. Wiggins. But her reign as queen didn't end when her show did. She went on to star in movies like Annie and made memorable guest appearances on other sitcoms, even winning an Emmy for playing Jamie's mother on Mad About You. Carol Burnett was the queen of polished, professional, big-budget comedy. But our next actor found sitcom stardom from a completely different universe. The world of sports and brought a raw, unpolished, everyman charm that made him a completely different kind of TV star. 14. Bob Uecker. In the world of baseball, he's a legend known as Mr. Baseball, the hilarious, self-deprecating radio announcer for the Milwaukee Brewers. But for an entire generation of sitcom fans, he was the gruff but lovable dad on Mr. Belvedere. Bob Uecker, who turned 91 in January 2025, made an unlikely leap from the broadcast booth to the sitcom stage, and the result was comedy gold. The show, which ran from 1985 to 1990, had a classic fish-out-of-water premise. The Owens family, a typical blue-collar household from Pittsburgh, hires a sophisticated and stuffy English butler named Mr. Belvedere to help run their chaotic home. Uecker starred as George Owens, a sports writer who was the complete opposite of the prim and proper butler. George loved beer, hated fancy food, and was constantly baffled by Mr. Belvedere's refined ways. Their culture clash was the heart of the show's comedy. But here's the secret to Uecker's success. He wasn't a polished actor, and that's what made him perfect. He felt like a real dad, not a slick Hollywood version of one. His natural, down-to-earth charm made George incredibly relatable. Underneath his gruff exterior was a heart of gold, and his love for his family always shone through. Of course, you can't talk about Bob Uecker without mentioning his other iconic role as the hilariously unprofessional baseball announcer Harry Doyle in the movie Major League. His classic line, "Jewest a bit outside," is quoted by sports fans to this day. Bob Uecker brought an authentic, blue-collar charm from the world of sports. Our next actor also had a background that perfectly prepared him for his most famous role as a veteran of the U.S. Army. He was the perfect person to play a soldier, even if that soldier's main goal was to wear a dress to get sent home.